Hey everybody, full year for the weekly news recap, the 11th to the 17th of December 2023. So, there's actually not much going on this week, as you might imagine, this close to Christmas. Not too much news coming out. And what we have here is Rekka, A Journey Begins trailer. Rekka, we talked about a little bit at last year's Game Awards. Um, it is a survival, it's like a magic survival-y witch sim kind of game. You play Rekka, I think. You're apprenticed to Baba Yaga, and you are kind of tasked with rebuilding the cottage, the chicken cottage, and then kind of going about the forest, collecting reagents and stuff to improve your spells and that kind of thing. The game currently is going to be scheduled for early access in Q2 of 2024. Next year at some point. It's just kind of showing off some of the things you can do. So there's different spells you can make, and you can obviously change the cottage as you feel like it. It looks kind of interesting, but again, it's an early access release, so I'm going to be waiting. I'm going to be waiting a little bit until it is completely cooked. Rekka. And then we have Mouse. Mouse has been seen in like a lot of social media, just clips of the developer putting it up and just kind of showing how development is going. This is one of the first proper trailers, I think. As you can see, Mouse is a sort of old style cartoons by way of Bioshock and Doom and that kind of thing. Looks really interesting. It's super gory for a very cartoonish game. So yeah, we're kind of excited about this one. It might be interesting. I don't know how well the black and white will play long term. You know, if you're constantly playing in black and white, it might get a bit too samey. And accessibility wise and stuff like that, to make things visible for people who have difficulty discerning things. How well that'll play out, I don't know. But it's still ages away, as you can see, 2025. Plenty of time for them to figure out what they're going to do about that. I'm in intro. I should be in main. Sorry about that. I'm still very tired. Anyway, monthly games. So, Game Pass, it doesn't look like is going to be getting a refresh for December, and it's probably fine since what they put out for December is already substantial. PlayStation Plus for what is this? PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. So we've already had the Essential tier, which is the 3 or so free games. I forget what they were now. Teardown, I think, was one of them, and I forget was Power Wash one of them? Anyway, for Premium and Extra. So for Extra, Grand Theft Auto 5, you somehow managed to not play it at this point. It's 10 years. It's 10 years and it's been top of the charts for almost all 10 years. Like, you somehow have managed to not play Grand Theft Auto 5. Well, now it's in the game catalog. Anyway, Stranger Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is the weird Souls-like Final Fantasy game. The guy who keeps saying chaos every 5 seconds, that guy. It's good. I actually really like the game. We will be playing it as part of my Final Fantasy series playthrough, but it's going to be a while because we're doing it in chronological release order, and we're only at Final Fantasy 3. It's going to be a minute. That was 1990. This came out last year, so yeah, it's going to take us a minute. MotoGP 23, it's a motorbike racing thing. It's free. Give it a shot if you want. Metal Hellsinger is Crypto the Necrodancer, but first person, and Doom. So you are playing to the beat, trying to shoot demons and melee them and so on, but you have to do it on the beat of the music. It being Metal Hellsinger, it's heavy metal music, and it's some really good soundtrack as well. I have no rhythm, so I'm terrible at it, but it's pretty good. Salt and Sacrifice is the sequel to Salt and Sanctuary. This is slightly different. I believe the first one was kind of 2D sprites, and this one is not, I think. But also Salt and Sacrifice is focusing a lot more on co-op and multiplayer, right? Whereas the original was very much a solo affair. But it is 2D Dark Souls. effectively. Moonscars is another 2D Dark Souls. Moonscars is Dark Souls, but also Metroidvania. We played a little bit of it on the channel this year? I think it was last year. It's okay. Could be better. But for free, it's pretty great. A couple of Mega Mans, Mega Man 11, and then there's some more Mega Mans in the PlayStation Premium. Mega Man 11 is, I don't think it's it's not in the X universe, so this is old school Mega Man. You have the 9 robots that you need to take down, and then eventually Dr. Light. Gigabash, if you ever wanted to be Godzilla beating the shit out of Mothra or King Ghidorah or any of that kind of stuff, Gigabash is the game for you. Grime, Tinge of Terror. Grime is another Metroidvania where you play a sentient black hole. And it is a melee-style Metroidvania, so Castlevania is a bit closer to it. I really liked what I saw of Grime, and I have been interested to play it, and I've kind of been waiting on it to go on a significant sale, to be honest. This is probably not what the developers want to hear, but that's where I've been at. And now that it's free, it's a lot easier for me to play it. Tinykin is effectively Pikmin, more or less. I don't think there's any different. Milo arrives on Earth. Okay, same as Captain Pikmin. What's his name? I forget his name. Except he's way too small. Team up with the mysterious Tinykin and use their unique powers to create ladders, bridges, explosions, and a lot more. It's Pikmin. Proteus is Doom. It's a boomer shooter, but it's a reimagined modern rendering techniques and so on, so it's a modern boomer shooter. And then the Shadowrun trilogy. The Shadowrun trilogy is like Cyberpunk Dungeons & Dragons, effectively. But don't go into it expecting the same level of quality that you saw from Baldur's Gate. They're still interesting games, but they're not like that level. But it is effectively D&D, but throw it in the future a little bit. It's all 3 of those games. And then onto the PlayStation Premium, as I said, more Mega Man. Mega Man The Legacy Collection and Mega Man The Legacy Collection 2 is effectively every other Mega Man game, I think, except like the online ones. I don't think you have. So Mega Man Legacy Collection is... Doesn't say which game. It's the original, It's the original 6 Mega Man games. So Mega Man's 1 to 6 or Rockman's 1 to 6. And then Legacy Collection 2 is the rest. 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then Mega Man 11 is in the extra tier. So if you're on Premium as well, you effectively have 11 Mega Man games to play. And then both Thrillville, PS4, PS5, which means it's probably going to be an emulated version. And then Thrillville Off the Rails. I think the original Thrillville is the PSP one. So that's a PSP port. And then Thrillville Off the Rails was a console version, PS2 version. Yes. Okay, so that one will probably be an emulated job. Light Buzzier of Star Command. PS1 game coming to Premium. I've never played it, although people who have played it seem to think it's pretty good. And that's PlayStation Plus for December. I mean, it's pretty substantial, again, like Game Pass. Personally, I'm done with Grand Theft Auto. Stranger Paradise, again, I'm waiting. I don't want to be too spoiled on it or burnt out on it by the time we get to it during the series playthrough, so I'll be holding off. I might throw MotoGP on. I have a motorbike IRL, and the last motorbike racing game I played was Road Rash a very long time ago, and one, I was too young to drive in the first place, so no appreciation, and two, that's not really a racing game. Metal Hellsinger is one I have been interested in. I've played the demo. As I said, I have no rhythm, so I wasn't very good at it, which means I didn't really want to actually spend money on a game I knew I was going to be kind of bad at, but since it's free, again, asterisk, I'll give it a shot. Salt and Sacrifice, let's see if I can convince Melwin to play this with me. Maybe. Moonscars, I already have it. It was okay. I have been meaning to go back to it. It was interesting. I was never into Mega Man, really. Which is kind of weird, because I am into a lot of side-scrolling things, but Mega Man just never really interested me. Gigabash, I feel it's like a party game. You get a couple of people around to play it. It'll be a good time. Grime, as I said, I have been interested to give that a shot, so that might show up on the channel at some point soon. And Tinykin, again, never really into the Pikmin thing, but Melvin has been pushing me to try it, so maybe. I mean, it's free, why not? And Proteus, I mean, you can't really go wrong with a boomer shooter, to be honest. And the Shadowrun trilogy, I already own it, but I haven't fucking played it yet. Oh, why do I do this to myself? Anyway, those are some of the games you can play eventually. What if you wanted to play something right now? Well, you can play Cookie Cutter. Cookie Cutter we've been talking about a little bit on the channel. It is a Metroidvania thing that is very gory and very violent. You play character Cookie, I think. I don't think that's their name, but anyway. It's going pretty heavy on combos. It reminds me a lot of Guacamelee. Reviews I've seen for it are either glowing or middling. So if you're really into Metroidvanias, I think you'll probably like it, like myself. But if you're not super into them, but you do like action games, you might get something out of it, but maybe not enough. The backtracking and so on. Not everybody is a fan of that kind of thing in Metroidvanias. Yeah, I'd be interested to play this. Look for it on the channel soon-ish. And then we also have House Flipper 2. Played the original House Flipper, you'll probably have an idea of what this is about. You take an old shitty house and you make it into a good house, and then you sell it for money. And then House Flipper 2 is effectively the same thing, but more of the same. House Flipper 1 is quite liked by the community. It's got a lot going for it, making it a nice, it's got almost unpacking vibes, but 3D. It has a little bit of the Power Wash Simulator type thing where you take a kind of shitty place and turn it into something really nice. Yeah, I'm a little worried about trying to play it. Because I might disappear off the channel and just get embroiled in making houses nice. Because I'm never going to own a house of my own, so this is as close as I'm going to get to it. Anyway, let's not depress myself any further. Moving on. Right, it is unfortunately now time to talk about the worst parts of video games. Video game industry. So actually good news for a change. The Last of Us multiplayer project officially cancelled by Naughty Dog. Fucking thank God. As soon as Jim Ryan's out the door, they're like, fuck that shit, we're not doing it. Okay, so obviously it's not great for the people who've been working on it because it means they can't show their work. If they needed to, change companies or anything like that, and they need a CV, portfolio, and what have you, chances are it's still under NDA, so they can't really show anything, which is kind of shit. But anyway, the reasons Naughty Dog gave was that it didn't want to become a solely live service game studio. It's kind of interesting that The Last of Us Online would have turned them into just a live service thing. They wouldn't have been able to do single player games ever again. It was initially planned to be part of The Last of Us Part 2. You may recall when that came out. Naughty Dog then decided that, you know what, we're going to split it because it's taking too long and we want to get Last of Us Part 2 out the door as well. They decided to cut it in half, and that Last of Us Part 2 Factions. So Last of Us OG, now called Part 1, did have a multiplayer mode, Last of Us Factions, that was a pretty standard, I think it was a 5v5 thing. It was like an arena thing where one team goes against the same, one faction against the other faction. Maybe it was multiple factions, I don't know. It was multiplayer, I didn't care. And the idea was that Last of Us Part 2 would just be that again, but refined and improved, and with anything they've learned from the first game and so on. Then they decided to get super ambitious with it, or Sony told them to get super ambitious with it, who knows. And it became Last of Us Online. Got mired in development for a number of years. Sony bought Destiny. No, Sony bought Bungie at some point and got Destiny for... Anyway, Destiny developer Bungie, who had been brought in by Sony to sort of champion their whole games as a service push, that they now have 12 fucking games in development. Well, not anymore, 11 now. The Last of Us is gone. Had raised concerns about The Last of Us multiplayer's ability to keep players engaged for a long period of time. Which is pretty funny, coming from Bungie, who are also finding it difficult to keep their players engaged for a long period of time, but okay. Anyway, The Last of Us' multiplayer spin-off has been officially cancelled. Statement from Naughty Dog: there's no easy way to say this. We've made the incredibly difficult decision to stop development on that game. I mean, if I was there, that was a very easy decision. Nobody wanted this. This will obviously be tough for people, especially our dedicated Last of Us factions community. The Last of Us factions community wanted factions. They didn't want whatever this was turning into. There were leaks of The Last of Us Online, just primarily its title screen, which was showing off things like battle passes and seasonal events and that kind of shit. And the factions community were like, no, we don't want that. We just want a standard multiplayer 5v5 or whatever it was thing. We don't want a second job, which is now like a third or fourth job if you're also playing Destiny and COD and whatever else. Anyway, the full statement from Naughty Dog is up on their website. I'm just going to highlight one particular paragraph, which is somewhat telling from how ambitious they had got with the game, and maybe it was not for their own good, and is also telling on how upper level management, Sony level management, but not just Sony, like EA would be in the same bracket as this. Microsoft would be in the same bracket as this. Anyway, in ramping up to full production, the massive scope of our ambition became clear. To release and support The Last of Us Online, we'd have to put all our studio resources behind supporting post-launch content for years to come, severely impacting development on future single-player games. So we had two paths in front of us: become a solely live service game studio, or continue to focus on single-player narrative games that have defined Naughty Dog's heritage. They chose the latter. So rather than do this thing that they didn't really want to do and nobody really wanted and was going to tie up resources for years to come, or focus on the thing that we're known for, which one do you pick? And of course, executive management would be like, no, do the thing that makes us money, not the thing that everybody wants and the thing you're known for. See Anthem, see Babylon's Fall, see Last of Us Online, see any of these things where they decided to go take a studio that is really well known for one thing. Redfall is another one. See, take a studio that's really well known for one thing and try to force it to make something else. Sometimes it works. Occasionally it works, and it's usually only when the studio itself wanted to do it. Look at Respawn and the Star Wars Jedi games. That was something they wanted to do. They wanted to do a single-player third-person action thing, and EA had the Star Wars license at the time. Worked out for them. BioWare wanted to make a single-player first-person Iron Man simulator, effectively, in the vein of BioWare games, and EA went, yeah, make it a live service, though. Crystal Dynamics wanted to make a tight four-character game, which is going to be the Avengers. You'd play the Avengers, effectively. It would be the four powered-up ones: Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk. And you could swap between them on the D-pad and whatever. That was the idea for Crystal Dynamics, and Square Enix said, yeah, but make it a live service garbage. Babylon's Fall was going to be a rags to riches, climb the tower thing, almost like a roguelike kind of thing from the Platinum guys. And again, Square Enix again, make it a live service garbage. Anyway, well, it looks like Naughty Dog has dodged the bullet on that one. Now that Jim Ryan is out of the picture, they're able to just cancel this sort of thing. Whether we're going to see the other 11 live service games will be interesting now, since he's not there to push it. I always got the opinion that it was his baby. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but they don't release their minutes notes, so who knows. Anyway, E3 officially, speaking of other things cancelled forever, E3 officially dead after more than 2 decades. So ESA has confirmed, it's the Entertainment Software Association, which is the lobbying group, effectively, for video games. So it's funded by like Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, EA, all of those guys. They all put their money into it, and they lobby the United States government for various things. But they're also responsible for some of the bigger conventional things, but not anymore. They're not responsible for E3 anymore. And I think a lot of those companies are starting to reduce their spending on the ESA. Anyway, once held every summer as the games industry's biggest convention, is now officially dead. So the usual refrain for E3 and why E3 is dead is COVID. The pandemic kind of showed up that since everyone was at home, obviously no one could travel for E3, but at the same time, it allowed bigger publishers and studios to broadcast directly to people. You'd have Nintendo Directs, Sony State of Play, various showcases, tons of showcases and stuff like that. That could all be done online, much cheaper. Nobody had to travel. Didn't have to build your entire development. Developers didn't have to like crunch to try to get something available for E3. And that would also impact game release calendars. That things would also come out roughly around the same times as well afterwards from E3. And also, all of your news and releases and things that you wanted to talk about your game would just be washed away in the E3 mess. Getting your story out is very difficult. So obviously, it was much better when they could pick and choose when they wanted to do that kind of thing. But E3 was on its way out way before that. The Electronic Entertainment's Expo decline began in 2018. I would argue it began earlier than that, but okay. When Sony Interactive Entertainment decided to pull out of the event, pull out Game Strong, which started a domino effect of other exhibitors no longer attending. In 2020, longtime collaborator and journalist Jeff Keighley of the Game Awards, etc., announced that he's no longer working with the show and has since created his own separate event, the Summer Game Fest, which was much easier for the pandemic. A lot of that, Jeff Keighley deciding not to work in 2020 is, again, lockdowns and COVID, is that there literally was no E3 event. In 2020, it was cancelled. Final in-person event was held in 2019, which allowed attendance by the general public, but was also a much sparser attendance by various developers and outlets. There were plans for 2020 event, but obviously COVID cancelled that. There was a digital-only event in 2021, which was kind of whatever. And then there was another one planned for 2022, was cancelled. Another one planned for this year, also cancelled, and now the whole event itself is dead. In one case, it's not, it's sad, as E3 was a huge part of the industry for 2 decades, as is pointed out here. And you would get excited about it. It's video game Christmas, effectively. And now it's a bit more sporadic, and also it's largely been captured by the Jeff Keighley machine of the Summer Game Fest and the Game Awards kind of thing. You can still point at those as events that will be happening, and there will be a lot of big news, but you're also now missing a lot of the first party stuff. Like, you don't really get Sony at any of those. You don't really see a lot of Nintendo. You see little bits of it, but not a whole lot. They kind of do their own thing now. Microsoft still seems to support the Jeff Keighley machine. You don't actually see Xbox showcases all that often. You see Bethesda showcases, sure. You get the occasional Bethesda and Microsoft showcase maybe once a year. At Sony State of Play is whenever they're arsed. When they have something to show. Anyway, moving on. Epic's win over Google spells trouble for app stores. So Epic have been fighting Google lawsuit about their App Store monopoly and the 30% take that they get from it. This is effectively the same lawsuit that they went against Apple with. Just swap out everywhere you see Apple, just swap in Google. It is effectively the exact same lawsuit, but they lost their lawsuit against Apple. The judge only sided with Epic on 1 of 10 counts, whereas the Google one was a trial by jury, which is very different because juries are, who knows? Who knows where they'll come down on something sometimes. And the jury sided with Epic on this case, so this is obviously going to be appealed. Google have already said that they're going to appeal it, so you're not going to see any big change anytime soon, because Epic appealed their lawsuit against Apple, and that's still going. That was years ago, so 5 years or so before you're going to see anything new here. This is a fairly lengthy article featured by James Batchelor, editor-in-chief of Games Industry at Biz, where they talked to a lot of industry-focused lawyers, some marketing people, people who would be involved in the App Store kind of thing. Mostly mobile-focused, obviously, because it's Google, Android, and so on. But this does have sort of similar potential ramifications for Apple, because as we said, these lawsuits are extremely similar. But also Sony's PSN store effectively is the same, is a monopoly, and it takes a 30% cut. The Xbox Live, whatever it's called, again, is a monopoly. It's the only place you can buy digital Xbox games. The only place you can buy digital PlayStation games is the PlayStation Store. The only place you can buy digital Nintendo games is the eShop, and so on. They're all monopolies. They all have the 30% take. Potentially, they would all fall under the same umbrella as this issue. The jury voted unanimously that Epic won on every count, deeming the dominance of Google Play and the requirement for developers to use its billing system, entitling Google to 30% of all transactions, to be monopolistic and anti-competitive. What I do find interesting, and this is maybe more of an inside baseball kind of thing, I am a Android developer, so I, develop Android apps, and I'm aware, very much aware, that Android is a much more open ecosystem than Apple. The only way to get Apple products or iOS products, iOS apps, what have you, is to have an iPhone. That's the only way to do it, and the only people who make iPhones are Apple. So that's a lot more locked down of a system. Whereas Android phones, yes, Google makes Android devices, but also does Samsung. So does lots of other ones. Why does my brain not work when I want to think about these things? Samsung is obviously the big one. Sony has made Android devices in the past. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. Nokia, Motorola, although Motorola's Windows Phone more than anything else. Anyway, the point is, Google don't control the hardware, but they do control the software. So Android apps are primarily got through the Play Store. However, you can install Android apps from other places. Android does allow sideloading of apps. iPhone does not. Does not allow that kind of thing. So there's nothing really stopping them from going a different direction with it. They just decided to go after Google. And it's a little disappointing that the jury came down with them, because all this is going to do is show Google that their opening of their ecosystem was bad, and that they should have locked it down, because Apple didn't lose their lawsuit. That's all that's going to do. Google has effectively been penalized for its semi-open approach, while Apple's walled garden is so far permitted. That may cause Google and other businesses to consider walled gardens a superior legal compliance solution, but is a much worse solution for consumers. Not everyone has $1,000 to spend on an iPhone, but you can get a pretty, kind of shit Android phone, but you can still get one for considerably cheaper. If upheld, the decision will pave the way for increased competition and innovation, reshaping the digital landscape for both developers and consumers, maybe, or Google will decide to just lock the whole thing down. Gonna go either direction there, or it just, is stuck in appeals for forever and everyone forgets about it. Google has announced it will appeal against the verdict. Not surprising there at all. So this is from David B. Hopp from Gamma Law. Apple and Google often pointed one another as their biggest rivals, and a clear example of competition in the sector. How can one be a market manipulating monopoly, Google, and the other one not, Apple? Exactly. We have conflicting outcomes here. So what way the law will come down on this, who knows? Both stores are known to offer more favorable rates to bigger developers, including Epic. So Epic even went after them, and they cited the 30% take. Neither Google or Apple take a 30% take from Fortnite. It's much more favorable because they do bigger numbers. They don't have to take the 30%. Now, 30% is arbitrary, and largely it's just pointed to because it's the industry standard, but I don't think it's ever been interrogated exactly a why 30%. What's the statistical reason for that? Is 30% some sort of magic number that makes servers stay up and that kind of thing? I don't know. That's ever been investigated. Mobile apps, mobile games do not have the same kind of margins as console games. Some of the bigger ones, sure, they make fucking billions, but your tiny small games that you just put out that don't have that monetization and energy systems and all that shit. Just a fun game that you play for, I don't know, a week and then it's done. They make nothing. less. They probably it costs people money to put out. The 30% take is maybe something that could be investigated, but the fact that there's a conflict between this outcome and the Epic versus Apple outcome is gonna cause headaches down the line. But down the line is, as I said, like 10 years from now, and appeals are finally done. The day before, Dev says shit happens as it deletes everything. So this is a ridiculous epic. The day before game that had been delayed numerous times was finally released this week, and then the studio just delisted it, shut down everything, refunded everybody, and just went, see ya, I'm out. Studio Fantastic's response to the entire self-inflicted debacle is shit happens. So here's your timeline of what happened. The day before launches is review bombed on Steam. Fantastic announced it's closing. Okay. Fantastic nukes everything. Its YouTube, its websites, Discord, its Twitter account. The CEO's Twitter account. The day before is removed from Steam, which is pretty rare. Valve typically just delist things. To actually have it completely removed is very telling. They didn't even remove Cyberpunk. Put it that way. Publisher Mytona promises full refunds for everybody, and then Fantastic continues to post through it, i.e. shit happens, and so on. So yeah, this is a pretty good example of, buyer beware, caveat emptor. Day before it was billed as effectively a Last of Us MMO. It's like a survival post-apocalyptic zombie thing, MMO, where you would all live in this like giant simulation of New York, effectively. That's not what it turned out to be. It instead turned out to be an extraction shooter, a bit more like The Division, but zombies. And also janky as fuck, super buggy, and not really a great looker, despite what all the trailers and so on had shown off. So Kotaku's Ethan Gach does point to Aftermath here. Aftermath is a paid, subscriber funded thing, so I won't show the article because payments and so on. But I will have a link in the paste bin if you want to check it out yourself. If you want the full timeline from reveal to release, Aftermath has an excellent rundown of each step in the drama-filled saga. It's pretty comprehensive, and it does show how people were taken in by the trailers and hype and so on. But the eventual game was obviously nowhere near that kind of level. And Fantastic themselves have actually been trying to rebrand and sort of wipe the slate clean of what has happened. Players have already spotted the studio seemingly attempting to rebrand as 8 points on Kickstarter, Steam, and everywhere else to try to get the stink of Day Before off themselves, I guess. But otherwise, Fantastic have not been talking to press. I think this has been seen as maybe a scam. If it is, that was an expensive scam. Okay, last thing for our industry bullshit. Activision to settle the discrimination suit for $54 million. We are committed to ensuring fair compensation and promotion policies. No, you're not. This is why you were sued in the first place. But okay. So this is going all the way back to the 2021 lawsuit from the CRD, California Civil Rights Department, which was alleging that Activision Blizzard was a boys' club. You may recall the Cosby Suite shit, where they were, sexually harassment of Activision and Blizzard employees, the potentially coerced suicide of one of their employees. Bobby Kotick was threatening physical retribution against some of his assistants and so on, and denied knowledge of it and whatever have you. Anyway, this is the outcome of this, 54 million. That's nothing. This is very much a slap on the wrist for Activision. They are getting away. They are effectively getting away with it as this exact lawsuit to settle the 2021 gender discrimination and harassment lawsuit. The exact same lawsuit is the reason Microsoft bought them. Not because it's sexual harassment, but because it brought their share price down considerably to the point that they could offer them $69 billion dollars for the company, and they took it because it was way more than what the shares were worth at the time. So they've effectively traded $54 million for $69 billion. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, it's a pretty fucking terrible deal for everybody else. It was a pretty great deal for Microsoft or for Activision. This is Activision's statement, but fuck them. It's just them saying, yeah, we're totally committed to these things, except you weren't, because this is why you were sued in the first place. The CRD sued Activision back in 2021, claiming company leadership willfully ignored employee complaints regarding pay disparity, gender and sexuality-based harassment and discrimination. They're very much burying some really terrible shit that happened at the company. In a press release on Friday, the CRD noted Activision Blizzard will take additional steps to help ensure fair pay and promotion practices at the company, citation needed, and provide monetary relief to the women who were employees or contract workers in California between October 2015 and December 2020. Well, that they will be, legally required to do. The $54 million will effectively be split between female employees. Between those. Although I know the way it points out just female employees, because male employees were also subjected to harassment. Not to the same level or anything, but I thought they were part of the same. Maybe they weren't part of the same lawsuit. Activision has repeatedly denied these charges, but is now on, to say that, oh yeah, we're totally on board with what the judge has said. We'll definitely do those things. If you were doing those things, this lawsuit would not have happened. But okay. What's kind of galling here is that the state in 2021 estimated Activision's liability, this is from the exact same lawsuit, liability at nearly $1 billion, affecting 2,500 employees who might have claims against the company. As court documents shown, Activision had around 13,000 employees as the end of 2022. So we've dropped from 1 billion down to 54 million, which is a massive drop. Massive. It's even less than Riot's payout, just pointed out here by Taku's and Glennon. Pointed out that the Riot's similar pay disparity sexual harassment lawsuit, that ruling in May 2023 related to workplace culture resulted in $100 million settlement. And arguably Activision's was worse. Not that we should be grading sexual harassment exactly, but Activision's was worse. So yeah, Activision get away with it. Bobby's going to get a massive payday out of the Microsoft acquisition, and nobody will learn any lessons whatsoever. Cool. Moving on. What's the community up to? Well, the community is up to shenanigans. Valve to Steam Deck owners, stop huffing the vent fumes. So somebody reached out to Valve to ask them why, is it safe to inhale the exhaust fumes and what's the smell and so on. Valve got back to them to say, thanks for contacting Steam support. Stop fucking huffing the vent fumes. Please refrain from this behavior for the safety of your health. There are no safety concerns apparently with general usage. However, directly inhaling the device's vent fumes should be avoided. They did not mention why it smells so good. And as an owner of a Steam Deck, I don't know. It smells. It does smell good. I don't know why. I'm not quite this level of huffing it, but I play the Steam Deck docked, so I don't really have it in front of me. But I can when I'm putting it away back into its case or whatever. I can smell it, and yeah, it's got a weird fruity smell to it. It's very strange. I am very curious why it has that smell. What is making that smell? Anyway, stop doing. we won't be liable for you huffing vent fumes. Sticking with Valve, Valve's festive treat for thousands more Dota 2 cheaters is a lump of coal and a permanent ban. So this is a pretty hilarious perma ban for Dota 2. This is being sent to accounts that have been found to be in violation of terms of service, specifically smurfing. If you're not familiar with smurfing, it is getting somebody else to run your account and play it well, as in follow the terms of service, follow good practices, community stuff to kind of boost your behavior score or whatever, so you're not always lumped in with other shitheads who cheat and so on, as well as various other things, gold boosting and that kind. I'm not sure if there's gold boosting in Dota, but it's this kind of thing. The other thing from smurfing accounts is to effectively make a new account because your main account is too good, and you're put into matches with other quite good Dota 2 players. and you're like, yeah, I don't want to be struggling every single match. Sometimes I just want to mop the floor with some people and feel good about myself. Then you make a new account and you go all the way back down to the lowest rank and just, make the game horrible for everybody else. But hey, you had fun, so that's that. Anyway, they're being given presents, gifts, and if they open it, they are given a highly toxic lump of coal. Your Dota account has been permanently banned for smurfing or other violations of the Steam terms of service. So, fantastic. that is hilarious. Good work, Valve, on that one. Anyway, gonna leave Cookie Cutter to loop since it is a new release. Anyway, that is the news for the 11th to the 17th of December 2023. As I said, not a whole lot going on. It is the end of the year and the Game Awards are over. That doesn't mean the game industry isn't trying to slip some shit in. The Activision settlement isn't great. It's really nowhere near. It's not going enough to, impact the company. This is a rounding error. Effectively, because they just got $69 billion, It's nothing. Anyway, Cookie Cutter and House Flipper, some interesting releases. Obviously, the release schedule has wound down for the year. We'll be ramping back up in January and February. We'll be starting to see a lot of big games coming up, and then all the way up into March. Then it'll be a lull again for the summer-ish. Might see some more things in April and May. June and July is typically quiet, and then they'll ramp up again in August and September. Anyway, other industry news: The Last of Us canceling their online game. It's not great for the developers themselves because that's a lot of work that they effectively have to just say goodbye to. But I don't think anybody really wanted that game, and Sony were just pushing ahead with it no matter what, and it was going to hugely impact Naughty Dog themselves, as they stated when they were planning to ramp up for production of it. They were like, well, we're going to have to basically never make a single player game again because we're going to be stuck doing this. It does say something for Naughty Dog's influence on Sony in that they were able to say no about that. A lot of studios don't get to say no. BioWare didn't get to say no. Platinum didn't get to say no, and so on. Anyway, what else do we have? There were other things. Epic versus Google. We'll see where that again. Google's going to appeal it, so we're not really going to see any huge change on mobile gaming or anything for a number of years. So the appeals still have to go through, and then appeals of the appeals and so on. So it's going to take a minute. Epic versus Apple has gone to the Supreme Court, so this will be the last appeal. Whatever the outcome is this time, unless it's thrown down to the bottom court. If they lose this appeal, that's it. They just have to sit with it, which will make it difficult for them to continue with Google's appeal. Because Google can obviously just point at the Apple one and be like, what's the difference? What's the difference? If anything, we are more open, less monopolistic than iPhone. Anyway, and then we have Valve telling you not to huff the Steam Deck, which is pretty funny. That's it for the news, but what is happening on the channel next week? Well, we have our roadmap thing for the second half of the year. This is effectively done now. This is pretty much all the games we're going to get to 2023. There's some games that are still in that are still being played. Forgot to update Final Fantasy 3 at the bottom, but that is currently being played. We did the first part of it this week on Tuesday. Master Detective Archives Raincode, we're in the middle of that, or really just starting that, honestly. Resident Evil Code Veronica, we're coming to the end. We'll probably finish it this week. That's my plan anyway, and then we can start the new year with Resident Evil 1 Remake. So any game that didn't manage to get featured, we're just going to roll it into next year and see if I can make it happen. So schedule for this week coming. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are effectively the same as last week and I think the week before. Final Fantasy 3 as part of my Final Fantasy series playthrough. We're only really getting started on Final Fantasy 3. That'll be on Tuesday. Master Detective Archives Raincode as part of Foley Fables. games that have a strong story or strong narrative focus, we are getting to a point where I don't know what's happening. So we had featured Raincode as part of Games a Bit, which is the one-shot series. And we played like the first case for that. Quite lengthy, 5-hour video. We finished that. Then it was a while, and then we added it to Fully Fables. So we're now at a point where I have replayed that effectively for the Fully Fables videos. And going forward, this will all be brand new to me, at least. Thursday, continuing the Resident Evil playthrough series, Resident Evil Code Veronica X. We are, as I said, close to the end. If you're familiar with the game, we are Chris at the Antarctic base. We've just arrived there. Friday, there won't be a stream. I am doing something in the evening. Saturday, however, we will have our tier list ranking for 2023. So we did this last year where we had to look at all of the games and we tried to put them in their various tier rankings, S to D. I don't think there are any D games this year. Maybe. We'll see. I don't think there were. There were last year, but not this year. Yeah, and we'll try to rank them out on Saturday at 7 o'clock. We'll just go through all the games and we'll talk through them and see where they end up. And then Sunday, of course, we'll be right back around to this show, which is the weekly news recap. Right, that's it from me. Thank you for keeping me company today, and hopefully I will see you on Tuesday for Final Fantasy 3, but I really hope I see you on Saturday for the tier list thing, because that's fun. I like doing it, and I think it benefits a lot more from community input. Thank you guys. All right, have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.